At exactly midnight, Bourbon Street erupted. People screamed, but not in fear. Not yet. They shouted countdowns. They raised glasses. They hugged strangers they'd never see again. Fireworks cracked somewhere overhead, echoing between old brick buildings. Phones lit up the night as thousands of people pressed record, trying to capture the first seconds of a brand new year. And then, a sound cut through the celebration. Not a bang, not a scream. An engine. At first, it didn't make sense. Vehicles weren't supposed to be there. The street was packed, shoulder to shoulder. No room to move, no room to run. And by the time people realized what was happening, it was already too late. Before we continue, take a second to like this video and subscribe. It's free, and it helps this story and channel reach more people. And it allows me to bring you more cases most channels won't touch. New Orleans on New Year's Eve is different. The city doesn't just celebrate, it breathes celebration. Music pours from doorways, neon signs buzz. Every bar overflows into the street. Bourbon Street becomes less of a road and more of a living thing, a river of people flowing in every direction. That night, security was visible. Police officers stood at intersections. Barriers were in place. The mood was relaxed, confident. For most people there, safety wasn't even a thought. They were tourists, couples, college students, locals who'd done this 100 times before. Some had been drinking for hours. Some were stone sober, filming for friends back home. Some were just waiting for the countdown, thinking about resolutions, about fresh starts. No one was scanning faces. No one was watching for threats. Because why would they? It was New Year's. Witnesses later struggled to explain the moment it began. Some thought it was a prank. Some thought it was a drunk driver who'd made a wrong turn. Some didn't realize anything was wrong until bodies started hitting the pavement. The truck didn't slow. It moved with purpose, straight down the crowd. People were thrown into each other. Shoes flew off. Drinks shattered against the street. Phones dropped and disappeared underfoot. Screams replaced music. Not one scream. Hundreds. Those closest never had a chance to move. Those farther away ran blindly, crashing into walls, into doors, into strangers who were just as confused as they were. Some people fell and couldn't get back up. Others tried to pull them free and were knocked down themselves. In seconds, celebration turned into stampede, and the truck kept going. Then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The engine cut, and the street went quiet in a way survivors would later describe as unnatural. No music, no cheering, just crying, moaning, shocked silence. Confetti stuck to blood-wet pavement. A woman screamed a name over and over again. A man knelt beside someone who wouldn't respond. Strangers pressed their hands against wounds, not knowing if they were helping or making things worse. Police flooded in. Sirens layered over each other until they blurred into one continuous sound. Paramedics worked fast, methodical, focused, stepping around abandoned phones still recording, around purses, around high heels left behind in the rush to escape. 14 people would die. Dozens more would leave with injuries that would never fully heal. And every single person there would remember that moment for the rest of their lives. Within minutes, Bourbon Street was sealed off. The same street that had held laughter and music an hour earlier now looked like a war zone. Blankets covered bodies. Yellow tape cut the night into sections. Officers stood motionless, faces tight, eyes scanning for threats that might not be over yet. Survivors wandered aimlessly, some barefoot, some bleeding, some completely silent. Many didn't know if their friends were alive or dead. Hospitals across the city went into emergency mode. Families woke up to missed calls they'd never forget, text messages that would never be answered. By sunrise, the news had spread nationwide. New Year's Day had begun with a mass casualty attack. Authorities moved quickly. This wasn't treated as an accident. It wasn't treated as random. Within hours, investigators confirmed what many feared. This was deliberate. The attacker had planned it. Digital evidence revealed ideological influence. Extremist propaganda consumed over time, reinforcing grievance, feeding isolation, shaping belief. No single moment. No sudden snap. Just a slow descent that went unnoticed until it exploded into public violence. Officials classified it as domestic terrorism. And with that word came a chilling realization. This wasn't just about one person. It was about a method, an idea, a vulnerability. Behind every headline number was a life. A father celebrating with his daughter. A tourist on their first visit to the city. A local bartender finally enjoying a night off. Some victims never regained consciousness. Others survived, but lost limbs, mobility, independence. Families gathered in hospitals, in funeral homes, in living rooms, where the TV stayed off because no one could bear to hear the details again. Birthdays passed without them. Holidays arrived quieter. Empty chairs became permanent. No ideology explained that loss. No motive justified it. Afterward, cities across the country reassessed their public events. Concrete barriers multiplied. Police presence increased. Bag checks returned. But something else changed, too. Something harder to see. People began scanning crowds, watching vehicles, standing closer to exits. Joy became cautious, and that might be the most lasting damage of all. What makes this crime so unsettling isn't just the number of victims, it's how ordinary the night was. No warning, no strange behavior, no obvious danger, just people welcoming a new year, believing for a moment that everything might be okay. The most terrifying truth is this: evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it looks like an empty street, an engine starting, and a moment you never see coming. This was the crime that changed how America welcomed 2025. And for those who were there, time will always be divided into two parts: before midnight and after. When people talk about that night now, they focus on the moment the truck appeared, the impact, the screams, the sudden silence. But investigators would later say something chilling. The real crime didn't start on Bourbon Street. It started months earlier, quietly, out of sight. And by the time anyone noticed, it was already too late. In the days after the attack, one phrase kept appearing in headlines: a senseless act. But law enforcement disagreed. They found planning, preparation, intent. This wasn't chaos, it was design. And the most disturbing part wasn't how fast it happened, it was how long it had been building. Investigators reconstructed the timeline backward: online activity, search histories, forums, private messages. Not violent at first, just grievance, isolation, fixation, a steady diet of extremist rhetoric. Content designed to convince someone that society is corrupt, civilians are enemies, violence is justified. None of it illegal on its own. None of it enough to trigger alarms. But together, it formed a map. There were no dramatic threats, no manifestos mailed to newsrooms, no final videos sent to friends. Instead, there were subtle changes. Withdrawal obsession, increasingly rigid beliefs, a fixation on public spaces, the kind of things people explain away. He's just angry. He's just going through something. He'd never actually hurt anyone. History has proven how wrong that assumption can be. Investigators later confirmed the choice wasn't random. A vehicle is easy to acquire, difficult to stop, impossible to predict. It requires no special access, no background checks, no insider knowledge. And once it's moving, there's no warning sound people recognize as danger. No one runs from an engine, not until it's already too close. This is the part people misunderstand. There were police, there were barriers, there was planning. But public safety systems are built to stop expected threats. They struggle with speed, unpredictability, low-tech methods. You can't search every vehicle, you can't harden every street, and you can't turn celebrations into fortresses without changing what they are. That's the vulnerability. After the attack, intelligence agencies issued quiet warnings, not to the public, to cities. Because attacks like this don't just kill victims, they plant ideas. One incident becomes a blueprint, a proof of concept. And somewhere else, someone is watching, not in horror, but in calculation. That's why officials refuse to release certain details. They weren't protecting the attacker. They were trying to protect everyone else. Could this happen again? The honest answer is uncomfortable. Yes. Not because security doesn't care, not because people are careless, but because open societies are built on trust. And trust is fragile. Every public gathering now exists with a quiet tension beneath it, an awareness that joy is no longer unguarded. For survivors, the trauma didn't end when the street reopened. Some can't hear engines rev without freezing. Some avoid crowds entirely. Some replay the sound of impact in their sleep. And for families who lost someone, there is no after, just before, and absence. The most disturbing truth about this crime isn't the violence, it's how ordinary the path to it was. No villain speeches, no dramatic warnings, just time and neglect and silence. The attack didn't come out of nowhere. It came from a place we still don't know how to see clearly. And until we do, every celebration carries a shadow.